What do you say, everybody? The Cubs with a splash signing. And we knew it was coming, but we didn't think, or at least I didn't think, it was going to be Shota Imanaga. But the Cubs signed Shota Imanaga. It's the first shoe to drop for the Cubs, which are predicted to be very active in the free agency market in the next 5 weeks. They get the Japanese left-hander. 30-year-old. So we're going to talk about that, get the comments going. You guys, I know, are pretty fired up, and it always seems to happen like this. You got to do stuff getting into the Cubs convention, right? Get people fired up and excited about Cubs baseball. I'm Mick Gillespie, at Broadcaster Mick, here on the Cubs baseball channel. Let's get this thing going. Go Cubs. What do you say, everybody? Great to see you guys. And I know a lot of you already fired up in the comment section, and you should be. I am shocked by this. But even though every report was kind of telling us that the Cubs were out, it didn't necessarily mean that they were out. But to win a negotiation, sometimes you got to seem like you're out. And then when the time's right, boom, you jump in and get them. So this is Shota Imanaga. We've talked about him before. Pitched for the Bay Stars last year in Japan. He had a 2.80 ERA. He is a strike-throwing machine. He's a left-handed pitcher, so that gives you another lefty in the rotation, along with Justin Steele, who was in the Cy Young discussions last year, had a great season for the Cubs. One thing that you can really say about Imanaga is that you know what you're going to get from him. And that is a guy who can give you innings, and he can give you innings, and he can give you strikes. And I think that in this day and age, you want someone that's going to be able to go out there and throw strikes. It came down to these four teams for Imanaga. And the Red Sox were kind of that team that was out. It really seemed like it was coming down to the Giants and the Angels. And obviously Jed Hoyer and the Cubs had other ideas on that. But think about how negotiations go. I mean, you want them to think that, hey, you know what, we're kind of where we at right now. And then you get the last deal and you get it done. So this is exciting. It was kind of I'm just still sitting here kind of surprised that this happened, but it's perfect because you're talking about going into Cubs convention now with that first guy to come over and join the Cubs. Imanaga had until Thursday to get a deal done, right? And then he was going to have to go back to Japan. We knew that deal would eventually happen. And Bob Nightingale of the USA Today is the one that has reported that this is happening. He still has to undergo a physical for the Cubs before this becomes official, before it becomes a deal that is set in stone. But last year in Japan, he pitched 24 games. He had a 7-5 record, 188 strikeouts. And that's one of the things that you really love about him. So I guess this is the replacement for Marcus Stroman, who opted out. So questions, okay, how much did they say the deal's worth? I have not seen that yet, although I'm sure here momentarily we'll have that information because I'm curious myself. I mean, is this going to be a 5-year deal? Is this going to be a 4-year deal? You know, what does that mean? I know that they reported that he wanted 5 years. And so, would that be something that, that the Cubs would go out there and give him? Would they give him 5 years? Maybe. I think a lot of us are really excited because it also tells us that the Cubs are serious about spending some money. I mean, how many of us were like, we spent more at Walmart today than the Cubs have in free agency. I never really worried about that as much because I know how these things go. I mean, it to me, go out and get the guys that you want, and then and don't sign players that you don't need. So part of that is like if you're going out there to make deals, get the guys that you want. And they went after Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, Ohtani wasn't as serious about the Cubs as the Cubs were serious about him, right? So they didn't get him, but that was the big prize, this free agent market, right? So then Yamamoto, it didn't really feel like the Cubs were serious about Yamamoto. It was, that was like a $200 million contract. We thought it was actually more than that. Plus you got to pay the posting. So whatever this deal is, you're going to have to pay him, and then you're going to have to pay the Bay Stars for posting him. So at 30 years old, he's obviously coming over as a guy that we saw in the World Baseball Classic. He pitched the championship game for Japan against the United States. So, wow. I love the fact that everyone is just so excited about this. And honestly, I am too. I mean, I was just like, I just did not see this as a possibility. I thought that the Cubs from, where they were saying that, hey, the Cubs are looking at maybe Jordan Montgomery, which makes sense, and it doesn't mean that they couldn't still get Jordan Montgomery this year. But the timing of this really helped because when you have that date where someone has to go, it's kind of nice because you don't have to sit around and wait anymore. It was either going to be Thursday or before Thursday, but it wasn't going to be after Thursday. So posting fee does not count against the luxury tax. Now it's like an entirely different fee that you're paying. So I guess that's good. I'll tell you, man, this is exciting. All right. Alex wants to know, what should the next moves be made? Well, I think that we can all sit here. There's not many of us that don't want to see Cody Bellinger back. I mean, I think that's a fair statement, right? We want to see Cody Bellinger back. And I really feel like for the team to get to the postseason, they're going to need Cody Bellinger. I mean, he was so clutch for the team last year. So I'm guessing that the next move is Cody Bellinger. If you can work through dealing with Scott Boras, right? Here's Rand says, hey, Montgomery give you too many lefty starters. Yeah, that's a possibility too. Although you look at, if you're going to take down the Dodgers, you're going to need some lefties, and the Braves got some lefties. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe you move to a different guy now. But if you do, I mean, think about the market. I mean, Blake Snell and Montgomery and Imanaga. So you got those guys, that were all left-handed starters. But wow. But yeah, I'm going to keep looking and see if anybody has any kind of details on basically what the terms of this deal are, because I think that's the next thing that we need to figure out. Imanaga, according to reports, is going to undergo the physical on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. And then so he'll go to Chicago for that. And then the deal becomes official, and he'll have a press conference on Friday if he passes his physical. So pretty cool. Big development, though. I mean, like, really big development, thinking that it really felt like Imanaga was going to end up with the Giants. And this is the first move that the Cubs have made this year. And so I know, too, a lot of us, we were kind of sitting back waiting and saying, hey, when's that time, when a deal like this is made? And I'll tell you, some of the things I like about this deal is if you trade, you're giving up some of your young players. And I feel like for the Cubs, you want to kind of keep that base of talent that they have coming up through their system right now. And if you go and trade for a pitcher, and we've talked about it on our videos a lot, is that you're going to have to give up pitching. You know, there's not a lot of times where a team will give up a frontline pitcher and not take back a pitcher in return. And I can remember Dennis Llewellyn, who was a longtime Cubs minor league pitching, who was a coordinator, and he was also a pitching coach, but him explaining to me how these major league deals work. And he's like, look, if you give up your, so-and-so starter in the big leagues, what you want to do is you want to get somebody back that you feel like is equal or potentially even better, and then get some other players to like pad that. So if you make a deal, the deal that Dylan Cease is going to get, whoever makes the trade with Dylan Cease with the White Sox, which could potentially be Baltimore, they're going to give up players. Now, Baltimore has an issue where they have a ton of guys in the big leagues, and then they have this farm system with a bunch of top 100 prospects and top 50 guys. So they have some pop there to give away. But you look for in that deal, if it happens, the White Sox are going to say, hey, we really they're going to demand pitching and some prospects. So I love this one right here. BD says, hey, they should have the press conference at Cubs convention. I 100% agree. And as a guy who has been to a ton of Cubs conventions and hosted panels at Cubs convention, loves Cubs convention, this is the excitement that you need. And I think sometimes we forget that the team's about the fans. It's about you guys. And so you want the organization to do things that the fans like and want. I'm not saying manage based on what the fans say, but I'm saying that it's supposed to be fun and exciting. And I think that Jed nailed it with this deal at this particular time. Now, it's really a coincidence because of his posting, but still really cool to see this. And I've talked about it before. We learned this with Seiya Suzuki. The Japanese baseball culture is something that I absolutely admire and I love. And I'm super excited about adding another player from Japan into the Cubs system and into the Cubs, organization. And I think that that's going to be fantastic as well. So I think that'll help. Still trying to figure out. I would love to know what the terms of this contract are. So I'm sure that's the next thing that will come out. One of the questions about Imanaga, 5-pitch pitcher, I think we talked about this before, is that he gave up 17 home runs in Japan, right? And that was one of the highest amount of home runs given away. And so the ballparks in Japan are smaller. So you would figure that some spots weren't going to be good for him, like maybe New York with the Yankees and that small ballpark. But Wrigley, a lot of times the wind's blowing in. You want contact. You got the middle infield that's Gold Glove caliber. Who knows who's going to be in center field. But if you put Pete Crow Armstrong out there, the guy's the best defender in all of the minor leagues. And we saw Mike Tauchman do a good job in the outfield. The defense for the Cubs is so good that if you get a contact guy, Kyle Hendricks, great example of it, let him put it in play and go get it, go get it. Let your guys go get it. So I think that'll be it. And also the other part of it too is just the fact that the ballparks are bigger. It works against position players coming out of Japan, and it works for pitchers coming out of Japan. So we'll see. Steven says, hey, trade for a third baseman, Astros or Cleveland. That could possibly happen. When Jim Bowden was talking about the MLB expert, we did a video on that yesterday, that the Cubs have thrown out contract offers to Rhys Hoskins and Matt Chapman. That told me that maybe the Cubs are serious about shoring up those two positions. And I wonder if that didn't come out, then who knows? Maybe that story came out and the timing of that was just to let the Imanaga people know that the Cubs are either going to make a deal with you or they're going to make it with someone else. There's when you talk about like the way that these negotiations go, there's so many things that happen. Our agents leaking stuff. The team say, like, are they saying, hey, we're doing this or we're doing that? Maybe it's none of the above. But how do these guys find out? And the timing of it was really interesting because you're trying to figure out, what to buy into and what not to buy into. Or the other part of it is that I really feel like this is a deal we're going to find out that came together today, and maybe it looked like it was going to be the Giants, or maybe it looked like it was going to be the Angels, because it probably was, but it wasn't finished yet. And then, the Cubs may have been sitting back in this negotiation and kind of acting like they weren't going to make this deal. And then at the last minute, they saw what the final offer was and they made a deal to get him. But yeah, this is a really good deal for the Cubs. Craig says, don't forget to pick up some Smokies gear. Yeah, well, I want to pick up some Imanaga gear. I got to say that name slow. I'm going through your comments right now. Here's a comment from Becky, worried about Hoskins playing for a whole season. I mean, that may be one of the reasons why you go, like, if you bring him in, to maybe do like a short-term thing. But guys, as you hang out, if this is the first time you've been on the Cubs baseball channel, please like and subscribe, and I appreciate it. I've been on here with our crew for since the trade before the trade deadline. This is always something that I'd kind of been kicking around doing, and then we decided to do it, and it's been a lot of fun. So we try to have a lot of fun on this channel. There really hasn't been a whole lot to talk about until now. And so, obviously we're pretty fired up about this. This is how the deal got done, is that Jake wore his Ernie Banks t-shirt today, and it did bring us good luck. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you right now because I'm the same type of person. There's certain things that my lucky Cubs gear, I think we all kind of have our stuff that we wear when we need like some luck. I met Ernie Banks at Cubs convention. I think the first time I met him was at Cubs convention. What a great guy. And it's just, you would go to talk to him and he would always want to talk about you and not him, which is crazy to me. Patrick Mooney with The Athletic just put out a tweet that says there is a strong sense of optimism that the Cubs will sign Shota Imanaga as the two sides are working towards a formal agreement before Thursday's deadline. So maybe, Bob Nightingale says that the Cubs are doing this, and that it basically is going to come down to a physical. And Patrick Mooney with The Athletic says that there's optimism, and he has also gone to that basically quoted. I'm trying to get signed in here because I kind of lost the story, but I want to make sure I see exactly what Mooney says, because what if we're all excited and it's not, and I don't think Bob Nightingale's wrong, though. I mean, that would be kind of a surprise. But I'm definitely curious to see like what the rest of that is. So I'll find out here in a second. But anyway, yeah, here it is. All right. So he's saying that Bob Nightingale reported a tentative deal, and basically that comes down to the physical. Okay, yeah, so that's it. I mean, you got to pass the physical. Mooney talks about Imanaga being one of the top Japanese pitchers for the last 8 years. And, obviously what he did in the World Baseball Classic where he faced guys like Mike Trout and all those guys. So anyway, this one, I think this is really, really an interesting signing for the Cubs if he passes his physical. Imanaga is not going to be kind of like a dominant, fireballer. I mean, he's a contact guy. I don't have a problem with that. And I mean, how many times have we had the discussion on here about analytics and all of that stuff? I don't think that you have to strike everyone out to be a great pitcher. You look at like a Greg Maddux. I mean, if he wanted to strike you out, he could, but he's up there just trying to get outs. And I remember something that he said to me, years ago. He was like, if you have 8 runs, how many runs can you give up? Well, the answer is 7. If you have 2 runs, how many can you give up? 1. Basically, what Greg Maddux said is you just try to win the game, and your strategy, not to say you want to give up 7 runs, but you could give up 7 runs, so a lot of that's based off of what the game situation is. And no one was better at winning baseball games in our lifetime than him. He won more than anybody else since I can remember watching baseball. So hopefully that'll be the case here where, he's in this. Imanaga comes in, throws strikes, gets some outs, does all of that stuff, and has success right away. Here's one. I would like to see the Cubs sign Jordan Hicks. They would have Jordan Wicks and Jordan Hicks. Yeah, that'd be fun. Like the time that Harry was like Sundberg and Sandberg, and he just get them all confused all the time. Holy cow. How do you like the Cubs starting rotation now? All right, so let's try to figure out what we're looking at right now. Okay, so we got Imanaga and Steele and Hendricks. I guess Wicks, right? I mean, I'm thinking that he's going to be in the starting rotation, what he did last year. And then the 5th spot would be Tyon, right? Or at least, and maybe not in that order, but those are your 5 guys. You got Smiley as an option. You got Assad as an option. So that really gives you 7. I like the Cubs rotation. I still would love to get another like frontline guy. My sense is that Imanaga is going to be more of a 4th or 5th guy in the rotation. Not to say that he couldn't do better than that. But I kind of feel like you would go Steele 1, Hendricks 2, Tyon 3. And then you would have maybe you go Steele, Tyon, and then Hendricks. Maybe the 3rd guy, then Imanaga, then Hendricks, and then Wicks last, probably to start the season. I mean, if you just had to throw this up to me right now, but I still think that's a good rotation. I like having some left-handers. You don't get Sue, right? You can match up against the Dodgers and the Shohei Ohtanis, and you're going to have to beat those teams. So yeah, very interesting. Going through some more of your comments now, and I'm still trying to dig for details on what this contract is going to look like. All right, everybody's talking about Morel on here. I'll talk about Morel with you guys as well. Here's the thing with Morel. Morel came up through the system, saw him come up through the system, and the first year he was a young guy. I saw him in AA, and he was just like a mistake machine, right? Great body, great personality. Wonderful guy. I saw he won the award in the Dominican Republic in their baseball league for the Gentleman Award, and he deserves that. I mean, he really is genuinely a great gentleman. So but you would watch him and he'd run the bases wrong. He'd be aggressive at the wrong time, like just swing at like a 3-0 pitch and he'd get himself out on like a ball that'd be over his head. I mean, it was just like a lot, but then he would do great stuff. And then he went back the next year, came back and went straight from Double-A to the big leagues, and he had gotten a lot better and was overmatching the talent of Double-A. But then he got to the big leagues, and I feel like he's still trying to figure out, how to play the game. Not how to be a great athlete, but how to be a great baseball player. And so he's got to focus on his defense. Dan, you're exactly right. I think that he's got to go over to third base. To me, I would put him at third base and just let him just keep taking balls over there and playing as many games and getting as many at-bats as he can leading up until spring training. The problem is when you're trying to win at the big league level, you got a guy making mistakes. It's going to drive your manager crazy, and then you put him at the DH spot. But honestly, I just don't think he's a good enough hitter to be the DH. I kind of feel like he strikes out a lot. But if you put the same numbers that he has in the DH spot, you take the strikeouts for the power and the production, and then he's such a great athlete. If he can just play some defense over there, it would solidify a position where I don't know. I mean, like you see. When Patrick Wisdom is in the field, I'm always kind of worried. I don't think he has the natural ability like that Morel has, right? I think Morel's is inexperienced. He's just got to learn. I feel like Wisdom just has very hard hands and it just doesn't have a lot of finesse to his game. And kind of that role or like a pinch hitter, DH, sometimes like throwing him in every once in a while in the field is okay to me. So you got Nick Madrigal, who is really kind of a better defender, but not really like able to do the power things that it takes to do that you would need to have success at third base. You want a guy that's going to drive in a bunch of runs, and that's just not his game. He's a contact guy, but I like having Madrigal too. I like him more as a utility player. So, Sam says if Belly comes back and PCA starts, then DH Suzuki and Belly and right, and then that outfield defense would be insane. Hey, that's not a bad idea, or at least part of what you're doing, right? I mean, maybe that's kind of how you work them all in, because the other thing about Belly is you could put him at first base and and kind of you can make this work. Joe Madden was the best at doing stuff like this, like where, and we don't have the double switch anymore, but that would have made it a lot easier to kind of get these guys in. But yeah, that's a good one. Steven says trade Tyon. They signed him to a 4-year deal. He's played 1 year of it. So, yeah. Do you think we'll run a 6-man rotation? That is actually a great question. I'm going to tell you why. First, let me just get a sip of my drink. In Japan, you have a 6-man rotation. And so if you want to keep, a pitcher healthy that's been in Japan, what they're used to is a 6-man rotation. It's a possibility to do a 6-man rotation. How different is the game now, though, than when you used to have a 4-man rotation? I mean, think about 1971, I think it was. Baltimore had 4 20-game winners in a 4-man rotation. No one will ever touch that again. Jim Palmer, Pat Dobson, Mike Cuellar, and Dobson, Cuellar, Palmer, and McNally. Yeah, 4 guys, right? Think about like the Cubs and some of their 4-man rotations, including Ferguson Jenkins, like they're guys that you really want to see, but those guys were conditioned to pitch like that. Nato says that Imanaga is the Japanese Lance Lynn. Maybe that's a good comp. Lance Lynn's had some really good years. Craig talking about Bellinger being a Cub, and I'm still just kind of trying to see if we can get any of the details on this. And I really wasn't expecting the Cubs to. I'll be honest, I just didn't think that the Cubs were going to sign Imanaga. I mean, I'm glad they did. It's exciting. But I just did not see. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. I got some details now. Leave it to John Morosi to throw it out there. Sources, deal with Cubs finalized will be multi-year deal at a $15 million a year range. He throws a fastball in the low 90s, a curve, a cutter, a split, and a slider. And it's very effective, the slider, against left-handers and right-handers, according to Morosi. So $15 million a year range. So I wonder if that's, that we don't have numbers yet, but, could that be 5? Could that be 6? Really interesting there. But at least we kind of have an idea of what this contract looks like, as the Cubs have just, decided to sign Imanaga. Here's Jordan. What does he say? Okay, rotation as of now: Steele, Imanaga, Taillon, Hendricks, and Wicks. Yes, and then Assad as the emergency 6. I think that's pretty much it to me too. And Smiley wants to be a starter. He was great at the beginning of the year and then kind of fell off. So, Uncle Gary jumping in. Ice is broken. Let's get more. I think that's how we all feel. I think we were all just kind of like, when is this going to happen? And then finally, the Cubs able to go out there and get this deal done. Let me pull up. I have not seen Mooney's tweet, but I will check it out. And I'll have some of these guys come on the channel too and get their thoughts on this. I guess just the same thing, that there's a strong sense of optimism. I think that if you're Patrick Mooney, you're the guys with The Athletic, you're just trying to be really careful about reporting something that you're not 100% sure about yet. So it seems like the source that Bob Nightingale has is obviously he was comfortable enough to go out and say, hey, I got this deal. So maybe, how these sources work. Could be an agent, could be could be the player, could be someone in the organization, but whatever. And you see a lot of these deals are broken with the national guys. Patrick Mooney is one of the best. So I'm sure what he's saying with that is just until he gets it all figured out and confirmed, and the Cubs may not be talking about this yet. So just keep that in mind. I think a lot of us are just kind of figuring out like what our next move's going to be, going into this. Yeah, Craig, I see you just saw the same thing with me, the $15 million. And I'm wondering, like, what, let me get my calculator out here. I'm just going to see like what it would look like. Yeah, 15 over 5 years is $75 million. So a little bit less than if that's what it is, 5 years, 15 million, a year, 75 million plus the posting fee. That makes sense to me as well, right? Jordan Smith says, what if it's 4 years, 160? Who would that be for? Oh, here's Michael says 4 years, 60 million. Okay, yeah, like that could be it too. Maybe it's a 4 year, so that puts him at 34 when the contract's up. And honestly, like when you see the Cubs when they've gone out and made these free agent signings, 4 years and $60 million is to me a reasonable price for a starting pitcher. And you're not going so far down the line that you feel like you did in the Hayward deal, where you're paying a guy way more than he's worth, and you kind of have to play him because of that. So what do you guys think? And I'm going to throw this up there for you guys. What do you think compared to Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery to go for 60? If that's what the deal is, then how do you feel about that? Maybe you're saving money to go after to go after Bellinger and then sign a corner infielder, or maybe both. But to me, I mean, if you got him at 4 for 60, then that seems like that would be a good. Yeah, Craig's like, for the price you can't beat. If that's what the deal is, you got to post him as well. I see. All right, let me talk about Pete with you guys. I saw Pete a lot. He's good. Now, obviously, he wasn't that good in the big league. He was 0 for 14. He looked like he was really out of sorts there. Just give the guy a chance, because I'm telling you right now, you're going to love him. I was disappointed. I'm sure he was disappointed. I know you're disappointed that he didn't come in and make an immediate impact. And we really could have used him. I mean, if the guy that I saw play every day was the guy that would have been on the Cubs when he got his opportunity, it would have really helped. But he was overmatched. But I think part of it was just nerves. Like, making the jump from the minor leagues to the big leagues right now is the biggest jump. And it used to be, what's crazy is when I first got into baseball, I always thought it was going from A ball to double A. That was where you really kind of like saw the funnel get, very, very thin. But not the case anymore. What are my thoughts on Gio Urshela third? I don't really know. I haven't thought about that one. I look at positions based on what the organization has. I guess I start there, and I'm looking and I'm going, okay, if I'm the Cubs, I'm putting Matt Shaw over at third. They did it with BJ Murray this year, where he played a lot of third base. So those are two of your best prospects, right? And trying to figure out who could be one of those guys to come up there and get to the big leagues. So much cheaper price for you if you develop those guys in your organization. Rios is like, hey, I hope we sign Justin Turner so he can be our veteran in the clubhouse. I think a lot of people like Justin Turner. But I haven't heard his name at all kind of related to the Cubs yet. Like, so if that's a possibility, it's just one that I haven't heard yet. I think we've all heard Rhys Hoskins and Matt Chapman and, obviously Cody Bellinger. And it feels like the Bellinger market, something like this could happen. Maybe a team that no one's thinking about is going to swoop in and get Bellinger. Maybe they're playing it out. But I really feel like the Cubs want Bellinger. And I think that there's a point where he's going to want to just come back to the Cubs, because a lot of those other options are starting to dissipate. The city of Chicago and him kind of, have this thing now, and you can't put a price on that. And not every player has it where the fans just kind of have that fit with you. So, and he's been lucky. I mean, he was a beloved Dodger and then a beloved Cub. So maybe he goes somewhere else and finds the same thing, but I don't know. I mean, it just feels like Bellinger's the next guy that the next deal that would come together for the Cubs. At least if it was up to me, it would. Matt Chapman at third base, Becky says, yeah, I mean, maybe, but how many years are you going to give him? I think if you could get, Chapman, Hoskins for a year or two, then I mean, that to me would be pretty reasonable. It'd be a lot more reasonable than giving one of those guys like over 2 years and then kind of being stuck with them when you have an organization that is really close to putting players into those spots that you developed. And I don't know that there's going to be someone better defensively than Chapman. And that's the exciting thing to me. I mean, if you put Chapman in that infield, how good would they be with Nico at second, Dansby at shortstop, and then Chapman over at third, right? And then if you had Bellinger at first, I don't know that Bellinger's a Gold Glove first baseman, but he's pretty damn good. And, like and maybe you do something like Bellinger and Mervis, but I just feel like it's going to be tough to have Chapman and Hoskins. I think you get one or the other, but then again, who knows? I mean, they signed last year. they signed two guys for the same position, and none of them lasted past the All-Star break. And so I don't know. It's always funny to kind of see how this all plays out. I'm going to check again and see if there's any new information up here other than the Athletic guys are still kind of sitting back here and saying that that they're still trying to figure out through their sources whether this is the real deal. Let me put this up here. This is what started the whole thing. I'm going to put this up on the screen just so we can all kind of look at it together. All right. This is Bob Nightingale's Twitter, and it says Shota Imanaga is scheduled to undergo a physical on Wednesday in Chicago ahead of the trade deadline, right? The Cubs have preached patience all winter, finally struck for their first move. Cubs have reached a tentative deal with Shota Imanaga. And there's all the information there. Now, let me tell you guys about Bob Nightingale. I know Bob. I don't know him well, but Gary Hughes, if you guys, you can't even see it. There you go. Let me put that up there. Gary Hughes, who was the special assistant to the GM of the Cubs, was good friends with Bob. And every spring training, we would all get together and go to a pizza place in Mesa by the old Ho-Ho-Com Stadium, not far from there, called Nello's Pizza. And Bob would be there, and so I got to know him. I like him. I don't read all of his stuff, but I read a lot of it. He's a pretty credible guy. So I mean, I'm thinking that if he puts this out, then it's, then I'm pretty confident that this is, this is a deal. Link says, dump brick hands wisdom. Yeah. Let me take that off there. There we go. We'll check Twitter one more time too, just because I know that we're all kind of doing the same thing here. See if Jeff Passan has anything on this. Nope. John Morosi's the one that says that that the deal's in the $15 million range. So there's his information. So he got the same information as Bob Nightingale, and I think we're pretty safe to say at this point that it's happening. So the Cubs have gone out and made their first move. What do you guys think of the move? Do you like it? Let's give me some thoughts here on this. Is this a good deal? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Give me this guy right here. If you don't know, kind of in the middle. I think it's a good deal. I'm excited about it. I think you need starting pitching for the money. I mean, if you're, in this market, how successful is he going to be? I don't know, but the players from Japan are coming over and they're having success. I think that we've seen that. So here's Steven first up. He says a good deal. So yeah, I think it's a good deal. It's going to be exciting to have that press conference, and then that leads right into Cubs convention. As long as he passes his physical, that's pretty cool. And leave it to the Cubs to kind of bounce in that, into that range where they're like, hey, says it's safe, I guess. If you had up until Thursday to get this done. My guess is, I'm telling you, I'm telling you the Giants were in on this guy. So I think I bet you they thought they had him, and then the Cubs just swooped in and took him away. Yeah, I'm sure that Seiya Suzuki is going to be happy to have a guy on his team that's from Japan. I wonder how involved, and that's a question that we'll find out too. How involved was Seiya Suzuki in this? We saw with Yamamoto that the Dodgers had their whole like team helping out, and so Otani's in there, and they have some star power, so pretty exciting. Anyway, so that's where we are right now, guys. Great to hang out with you. I will keep an eye on this, and as soon as we find out more, more of the details or whatever, we'll have that for you. But thanks for hanging out. Make sure you like and subscribe, and it's fun talking baseball. I do want to say this, Craig, you're right. The channel is presented by the Tennessee Smokies. And right now they have some great deals on stuff. Like if you collect like autographs, Pete Crow Armstrong and Owen Casey, some of the top prospects, they have them there at their collector's corner. They have game worn jerseys. Some of those are autographed bats and balls. They also have Cubs gear and all that stuff as well. So find out for yourself, smokiesbaseball.com/store. Thanks for hanging out. And again, stay tuned here. We'll continue to update you as this thing unfolds, but the Cubs get their first guy signing, or at least agreeing to a deal with Shota Imanaga, a left-handed pitcher, to help out. So go Cubs, guys. Thank you.